We begin this hour with President Trump once again sparking all kinds of confusion with another foreign policy announcement by tweet. This time, he is contradicting his administration on North Korean sanctions, leaving his own aides and his own officials trying to decipher what the heck he means. This is what he tweeted. It was announced today by the U.S. Treasury that additional large-scale sanctions would be added to those already existing sanctions on North Korea. I have today ordered a withdrawal of those additional sanctions. So let's go straight to our CNN national security reporter, Kylie Atwood. And Kylie, what does he mean?
Well, that's the question, because there weren't actually any new sanctions announced today by the White House or by Treasury. In fact, yesterday, there were some newly reimposed sanctions, but they fell under existing sanction authorities, meaning that it was just the U.S. maintaining what it has already been trying to do and put pressure on North Korea, really squeeze North Korea economically, right? And so a senior administration official just yesterday telling reporters that this was not something that was upping the ante in terms of pressure and sanctions on North Korea, but it was maintaining the U.S. stance that North Korea will continue to be sanctioned if they are not going to denuclearize. Now, of course, the thing to consider here, however, is that the administration has continually said that these sanctions are only as effective as how they are implemented, calling out China specifically for allowing leakage in these sanctions that are currently in place. So now if the U.S. starts to roll back how much it is willing to enforce these sanctions, that's going to cause a lot of questions. Also in Hanoi, Kim Jong-un was asking for sanctions to come off of North Korea at the table when he met with President Trump, and the administration wouldn't do that then. So are they changing their posture? And of course, how does that affect the continuing U.S. trade talks, which are going to be carried out next week, another round of those in Beijing? And how does that impact this decision, this tweet today? What's Treasury going to do? We still don't know yet.
Quickly, what has Sarah Sanders said about this?
Well, Sarah Sanders said that President Trump likes Kim Jong-un, reiterating that they have a good relationship, but didn't exactly say what this tweet meant and what if it was referencing what we saw yesterday, these additional sanctions under existing authorities on two Chinese entities.
Okay, Kylie Atwood, thank you very much. Joining me to discuss retired Rear Admiral John Kirby. He's also a former State Department spokesman. So Admiral, nice to see you, sir. Let's just piggybacking off of this this tweet on North Korea. This is coming, just one day after the president made that major policy change on Israel via tweet. I know a lot of his supporters appreciate his transparency over Twitter, but is this any way to conduct foreign policy?
Yeah, it is if you want to convince the world that we don't have a cohesive foreign policy and that we're not interested in consulting allies, partners, or even other federal agencies before we enact these kinds of policies.
But other than that, no big deal.
Yeah, right. It's a dangerous way to do diplomacy because it conveys to the world and frankly to his team that these aren't well thought out ideas and that there's no plan going into them in terms of implementation and execution across the board.
This also comes, after that last summit in Hanoi ended with Trump walking away. By the way, give the man credit. He was being handed a terrible deal, but no major accomplishments there. So what message would the sanctions send to Kim?
Yeah, it's going to be really, I think, interesting to see how this plays out over the next few hours, Brooke. I mean, certainly there's a couple of people that are going to receive, Kim might receive this as, okay, maybe Trump's willing to deal on sanctions and lighten up, and maybe he's doing this to try to get me to do something at the table on my own side. The Chinese are going to look at this and also going to wonder what's going on in the context of the trade talks that are going on right now. So it's unclear why he did this. Clearly, he did it on a whim and without much strategy behind it. But it sends a message to both Kim and to President Xi that, again, the United States is unpredictable, we're unreliable, and we don't have a really cohesive set of principles guiding our way forward in either set of talks.
All right, so this is the foreign policy tweet today. The foreign policy tweet yesterday, was about the Golan Heights. And I just want to ask you specifically about this move by President Trump to recognize the Golan Heights as Israeli territory, because in an interview with the Christian Broadcasting Network, his Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, said that it is possible God sent Donald Trump to save the Jewish people. Here he was.
Could it be that President Trump right now has been sort of raised for such a time as this, just like Queen Esther, to help save the Jewish people from an Iranian menace?
As a Christian, I certainly believe that's possible. To see the remarkable history of the faith in this place and the work that our administration has done to make sure that this democracy in the Middle East, of this Jewish state, remains, I'm confident that the Lord is at work here.
Do these kind of declarations, Admiral, do they make it impossible for the U.S. to be an impartial negotiator in the Middle East?
We already are, it's impossible already that we'll be seen as impartial in this. We've already put our thumb on the scale so heavily on the side of Israel with respect to Middle East peace that we have no credibility really as anything but a partial participant in this. That said, what really bothers me about what the Secretary said was the implication for our larger foreign policy around the world. When you couch what we're doing in the world of diplomacy around the world in Judeo-Christian values alone, you make it very hard for us to speak credibly about religious freedom and civic freedoms to groups of people around the world who do not subscribe to that faith. It's one thing to be a person of faith in the cabinet, that's perfectly fine. But when you slap that faith onto the actual policies that you're trying to implement, I think you make it very hard for the United States to be seen as credible around the world.
We talk about impartiality or not. President Trump was asked if the decision to tweet that had anything to do with Netanyahu's re-election campaign coming up, in 2 weeks. So this is what he told Fox Business.
I wouldn't even know about that. I have no idea. I hear he's doing okay. I don't know if he's doing great right now, but I hear he's doing okay. But I would imagine the other side, whoever's against him, is also in favor of what I just did. Every president has said, do that. I'm the one that gets it done.
So Trump is hosting Prime Minister Netanyahu at the White House next week. There are these posters on buildings in Israel supporting Netanyahu's re-election. So, it seems like there are two bad answers for why he wouldn't know. One, he's lying, or two, he's totally unaware.
It strains credulity, Brooke, that he doesn't have an idea of how his friend Bibi is doing in the run-up to the election. And clearly, whether he says it or not, this is clearly putting, again, the thumb on the scale, not just in favor now of the government of Israel, but the current serving prime minister. And that's a dangerous place for the United States to be, which is why we always tried not to do that, particularly in the weeks leading up to a local election. You want to do nothing, say nothing, and try to, make sure that you're not impacting that process, that democratic process at all. But it goes beyond just helping his friend Bibi, Brooke. This is about definitely coming down on the side of the right wing in Israel in favor of not just the Golan Heights annexation, but eventual sovereignty over the West Bank settlements. The message that Trump and his team is sending to the people of Israel is, we are solidly behind the right wing in that party, not just Netanyahu, and we're going to look the other way if you go ahead and try to exert sovereignty over the West Bank, which would, of course, completely blow up any scrap of a chance that you're going to get to a two-state solution here and do the right thing by the Palestinians.
Yep, it's that bigger picture message.
It is.
I hear you. Admiral Kirby, appreciate you. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.